What if the most dangerous place in spiritual life is not failure, but confidence in your own righteousness? What if the prayer that sounds the most impressive is not the one that reaches the deepest? And what if the person who feels least worthy is the one who actually walks away justified? In Luke 18, verse 9 to 14, Jesus tells a parable that is directed to a very specific group, those who were confident in their own righteousness and looked down on others. This opening already sets the tone. The issue is not simply belief, but attitude. Not simply action, but perception of self compared to others. Jesus is addressing a hidden danger that can exist even in religious life, the feeling of superiority that grows from comparison. He tells a story about two men who go up to the temple to pray. On the surface, they are doing the same thing. Both are entering a sacred space. Both are speaking to God. Both are engaging in what appears to be worship. But internally, their posture is completely different. The first man is a Pharisee. The second is a tax collector. In the cultural context of the time, these two figures would have been seen very differently. The Pharisee is associated with religious knowledge, discipline, and public respect. The tax collector is associated with dishonesty, collaboration with oppressive systems, and social rejection. Jesus intentionally places these two figures side by side to highlight contrast. The Pharisee stands by himself and prays. His prayer is not a request, it is a declaration. He begins by thanking God that he is not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector standing nearby. Immediately, the tone of the prayer reveals something important. It is centered on comparison. He continues by listing his religious actions, fasting twice a week and giving 1/10 of all he receives. On the surface, these are practices associated with devotion, but the way they are presented shifts the focus from gratitude to self-recognition. The prayer becomes a reflection of personal achievement rather than dependence. Then Jesus introduces the second man. The tax collector stands at a distance. He will not even look up to heaven. He beats his chest and says, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." This prayer is short. It is direct. It contains no comparison, no listing of actions, no evaluation of others. It is a simple expression of need. Two people, two prayers, two postures. One stands confidently, speaking about himself. The other stands humbly, aware of his own condition. Jesus then delivers the conclusion. "I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God." This statement completely reverses expectation. The person considered less righteous in social perception is the one who is described as justified. The reason is not based on appearance, status, or external behavior alone. It is based on posture before God. Then Jesus adds a principle. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. This becomes the central message of the parable. But to fully understand it, we need to look deeper into what is happening in each prayer. The Pharisee's prayer is not necessarily about false information. The actions he describes may be accurate. He may indeed fast and give offerings. The issue is not only what he does, but how he positions himself in relation to others. His prayer includes comparison, separation, and elevation of self. He defines his righteousness in contrast to others he considers less righteous. The tax collector's prayer contains none of that structure. He does not compare. He does not list achievements. He does not evaluate others. He simply acknowledges his condition and asks for mercy. This difference reveals two entirely different understandings of relationship with God. One approach is based on self-assessment compared to others. The other is based on dependence and awareness of need. Jesus is not saying that discipline or religious practice is meaningless. The Pharisees' actions are not the focus of criticism. The focus is the heart posture behind the actions. The same actions can come from very different internal states. One leads to self-exaltation, the other leads to humility. The parable also highlights spatial symbolism. The Pharisee stands by himself, the tax collector stands at a distance. Physical positioning reflects internal perception. Standing close and speaking confidently does not guarantee spiritual alignment. Standing far and speaking humbly does not disqualify sincerity. The temple setting is significant. It is a place associated with worship, presence, and communication with God. Yet within that same space, two completely different spiritual postures are expressed. One is focused on self, the other is focused on mercy. Jesus concludes that justification is given to the one who humbles himself. This introduces a principle that runs throughout his teaching. Elevation is not achieved through self-promotion, but through humility. The Pharisee seeks recognition through comparison. The tax collector seeks mercy through honesty. The outcome is reversed from expectation. The parable does not focus on external success or failure. It focuses on internal orientation. Another important aspect is language. The Pharisee uses a structured, confident tone. The tax collector uses a simple plea. One speaks in statements, the other speaks in request. One describes identity through action, the other describes identity through need. This contrast shows that prayer is not only about words, but about position of heart. Jesus directs this parable to those who trust in themselves and look down on others. This combination is important. Self-trust combined with comparison leads to a particular mindset, confidence based on contrast. The danger is not confidence itself, but confidence built on comparison. The parable invites reflection on how people view themselves in relation to others. It also raises the question of what makes prayer acceptable. Is it length? Is it detail? Is it performance? Or is it sincerity, humility, and dependence? The tax collector's prayer is short, but it carries weight because it is honest. The Pharisee's prayer is detailed, but it lacks humility toward others. This does not mean structure or discipline are negative. It means that internal posture determines meaning. Another layer of the parable is the idea of justification. Jesus says the tax collector went home justified before God. Justification here refers to being declared right, accepted, or aligned. It is not based on comparison with others, but on relationship with God. The Pharisee does not receive that same description, not because of absence of actions, but because of the orientation of his heart. The closing principle, those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted, summarizes the entire teaching. It is not only a moral statement, it is a spiritual pattern. Self-exaltation leads to reversal, humility leads to elevation. This pattern appears repeatedly in Jesus' teachings. It challenges common assumptions about status recognition and worth. The parable also speaks to the danger of unnoticed pride. The Pharisee is not described as openly malicious. He is religious, disciplined, and active. Yet his comparison creates separation. The tax collector is aware of his own condition. That awareness becomes the starting point of his prayer. One of the most striking elements is that both men go to the same place, but only one leaves with justification. This suggests that physical location does not determine spiritual outcome. Instead, posture determines outcome. The temple becomes a space where both pride and humility are revealed. Jesus does not need to describe external judgment. The story itself reveals internal reality. The listener is invited to reflect on which posture they identify with, not in terms of external labels, but in terms of internal approach to God and others. Do we define ourselves by comparison, or do we approach with awareness of need? Do we speak from self-assurance, or from humility? The parable does not discourage discipline or good actions. It challenges the foundation on which identity is built. If identity is built on comparison, it becomes fragile. If identity is built on humility before God, it becomes stable. The tax collector's prayer becomes a model not because of perfection, but because of honesty. The Pharisee's prayer becomes a warning not because of actions, but because of orientation. Both men are visible in the same space, but their internal realities are different, and that difference determines their outcome. The parable ends with a reversal that surprises expectation. The one considered lower is lifted, the one considered higher is brought low. This reversal is not arbitrary. It reflects a consistent principle. God responds to humility, not self-exaltation. The story invites ongoing reflection, not quick judgment, because the danger it addresses is subtle. It is possible to do good things while holding a comparison-based view of others. It is also possible to feel unworthy yet approach with sincerity. The difference lies in posture. The Pharisee and the tax collector represent two approaches that can exist in any context: self-centered evaluation versus humble dependence. Jesus uses this story not to divide people into categories, but to reveal internal truth. And in that revelation, the listener is invited to reconsider how they approach God, prayer, and others. not with comparison, but with humility, not with self-exaltation, but with awareness of need. That is the quiet but powerful message of the parable. Thank you for watching this video. If this message helped you reflect, please like the video, follow the channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today.